where we left off, before we had the power cuts. We were um, we were at we were looking at power in data center. So we looked at power data center. Yep, that's where we were before we dropped off. So we were saying that power data center ensure uninterrupted operation, right? That's that's what it means, uninterrupted data operation. I wanted to, okay. So uninterrupted power supply. UPS, it provide a backup power source for critical equipment. And we looked at this before we got dropped off. And we said also it redundant power line. Data center should have multiple power lines connected to different grids, minimizing the risk of complete power outage due to a single line failure. So we must have a generator as a backup plan, what we have in powering center, and generator will provide a long-term generator provides a long-term power source, and it ensure continued operation even during extended power outage. Okay, and they are typically fueled by diesel or natural gas, just for information. And we did look at capacity planning, and we said what that was. We said data, again, that data center need a reliable power supply to keep the system running. That's the purpose of the power in data center, have additional supply to keep it running. And this include power resources like uninterrupted power supply, like we just talked about. Okay, so before we dropped off, we had talked about all of this. And we did look at capacity planning, right? And we did say that capacity planning is a accurate capacity planning involve forecasting future data storage, processing, and bandwidth. We looked at all of these before we got dropped off. So what we were going to was the scenario for those two, right? So let's get into the scenarios and the multiple choice. So, wonder where's okay. So, we said a hospital expanding its electronic records, right? And we said, what's the situation here? We said the hospital is transitioning from a paper-based record to a digital one system, okay? And the IT team must ensure enough storage and processing power for real-time access to patient data across the departments. Okay, so we said they're transitioning from paper-based record, and they want to now to become digital. So in order for this to happen, the IT team, they must ensure, right, enough storage and processing power for real-time access to patient data and records. The solution, hospital performs, they can perform what is called a capacity planning by estimating storage needs based on the number of patients and medical records. They will have to upgrade the network infrastructure to support the fast data access, because if so many people accessing the network and it does not have the scalability and all of that, it's going to crash. Ensuring redundancy to prevent data loss. And some of the risks that may involve is some storage needs are um, underestimated, and patient data retrieval could slow down, affecting medical care. Okay, so these are some of the things that we have to make sure that the network is upgraded. Startup launching a cloud-based AI service. So this is a startup. So a tech startup is launching an AI-powered analytical platform, right? And it needs to ensure sufficient computing resource for users while keeping the costs low, right? So they need to make sure that there is enough storage, there is enough resource for it to keep running. Using a cloud-based virtual machine with flexible scaling option will be good, analyze the historical usage trend to predict demand, and implementing an edged computer to reduce load and central server. So one of the challenge they're saying that we could face is under provision can cause service disruption, while other provision leads to unnecessary costs. The next scenario that we're going to look at is the university planning for online learning growth. And we say a university saw 300% increase in an online learning enrollment post pandemic, right? Its existing server and bandwidth are insufficient for video lecture and live class. This is something. So when you're doing it, remember now when we talk about capacity, everything is increasing. And so because we have a large number of personnel fluxing online, coming online to do enrollment, then we need to make sure that the server and the bandwidth is sufficient to take all of that load and the system doesn't crash because they're going to need videos and all of that, right? So the bandwidth are insufficient for video lecture and live class. So what they can do is upgrading the bandwidth and cloud server to handle increased student load using CDNS content delivery network to distribute video content efficiently, right? They can implement predictive analysis to estimate future enrollment. Another risk that they may come up with if capacity planning um, is inaccurate, student might face poor video quality, right? And crash or long loading time. Have you ever gone on some network and when you're on it, it just have long loading time? Like it takes a long time to load or the entire system crash. So they have to make sure that there are systems in place that will prevent all of this. The capacity planning. Another scenario is that, and this is this one, so the one that we just dealt with was on capacity planning. Now we're going to look at the power data center scenarios, okay? So one of the power center data scenario is one, the power redundancy for a financial institution. So the scenario is a bank's data center runs 24/7, right? Processing financial transaction. Even even a few minutes of downtime could result in millions of dollars in loss, right? So the bank data center runs 24/7, processing financial transaction, and they're saying even a few minutes of downtime could result in millions of dollars in loss, right? Because when you're doing all of these and if there is any interruption, it does cost the company. The company may not come out and say that, these are our loss, but internally they know what they lost because they don't have the powering center or the backup system. So the solution is, right, use uninterrupted power supply to handle brief outage. So it's look at it, what happened with this company is that it's a 24/7 banking that does transaction, and there was a power outage, and because of that they lose a lot of money, right? So they're saying use uninterrupted power supplies to handle brief outages, right? Deploying backup generators for long-term power failure, implementing dual power feeds from separate power grids for redundancy. And if the power fails without a backup plan, financial transaction could be lost, causing security risk. So that's the risk about it. If you don't have a backup plan, if you don't have a backup plan, if there is a outage or there are any copying of your file to make sure that you have second copies and multiple copies in different locations, what you're going to do if the grade go down, everything fails. If the grades go down, then everything is going to fail. And we don't want everything to fail. So let's look at some multiple choice. So This is multiple choice on capacity planning and power data center, okay? What is the primary goal of capacity planning? Based on what we talking said, what's the primary goal? Is it maximizing server downtime, B, ensuring its infrastructure can handle future demands, C, reducing the number of employees, D, increasing the number of software updates. So the purpose of capacity planning is ensuring its IT infrastructure can handle future demands. Okay, we have to make sure that whatever our IT infrastructures are, that it can handle future demand. So when 1 million people comes on the network, on the server, on your online platform, whatever you're offering, can it handle all of that? Which factor is most important in capacity planning for cloud servers? Which factor is most important in capacity planning for cloud servers? A, number of software developers. B, storage and computerization power requirement. C, office space. D, employee salaries. And when we're doing capacity planning, one of the things that we want to look at is storage and computerization power requirement. You know, that is something big. What is the storage? Can it handle? Can it handle the amount of data? And can it store it, or will it crash after a while? Right? So we have to make sure that that is something that we take into consideration. Number three, a university wants to expand online courses, right? What should they analyze for capacity planning? If they want to expand their online courses, what should they analyze for capacity planning? Is it A, number of in-person students, B, bandwidth and server load during peak time, C, number of physical classroom available, the available parking spot. And we want to know that the answer should be B, because we want to know the bandwidth and server load during the peak time, when everyone is rushing to the system, when everyone is using it at the same time. Okay, we want to make sure that um, everything is in place. What is a common risk of poor capacity planning? When you have poor planning, poor capacity planning, what is the risk? Is it A, over provision lead to waste cost? B, under provision cause system failure? Both A and B, neither A or B, that's D. So the answer will be both A and B. One of the common risks of capacity planning is over provision leads to waste costs and under provision cause system failure. So I guess we have to stand in the middle. What is, and this question is for power data center. The next set of multiple choice that we're going to do is for power data center. What is the primary purpose of uninterrupted power supply in a data center? What is the primary purpose of uninterrupted power supply in a data center? A, to prematurely replace the power grid. B, to provide short-term power during an outage. C, to reduce the CPU usage. D, to cool server. And the purpose we know of the uninterrupted power supply is to provide a short-term power during an outage. And remember that this is what keep the system running, okay? Which backup power source is most commonly used in data center for long outage? Which backup power source is most commonly used in data center for long outage? Is it wind turbine, diesel generation generators, alkaline battery, hydroelectric dam. And we remember we talk about, we said they use diesel, right? Diesel generators. Okay. A government data center in a disaster prone area should prioritize what? So a government data center in a disaster prone area should, what would they paralyze? Right? Is it A, cheaper electricity, B, multiple power redundancies, C, reducing hardware maintenance, D, limiting cloud computing? And what if the area is a prone disaster area, you might want to consider multiple power redundancy. That's important. You probably want to consider doing that. Okay, I think. Okay. So this, we're going to the next concept that we're going to be looking at is data backup, right? Let's look at data backup. So let's look at this definition and then we go back to the one we skipped. So data backup involve making copies of important information and storing them in a safe location, right? So data backup involve making copies of important information and storing them in a safe location. And there are different types of backup. We were talking about that earlier. We went through it briefly. Um, when we talk about it, it's for an example, we said a business may back up its file every night to an external hard drive and a cloud service, right? If a ransomware attack happen, the company can restore its file. So we did spoke about this briefly, maybe in the other lesson or before. So in a data backup is very crucial. It's very crucial that we have some level of backup. So we could do regular backups, right? So for those of you who have your phone, sometimes it asks if you want to do backup weekly, if you want to do it monthly, or if you want to do the backup daily, right? So it said a regular backup ensure that the data is copied and stored in a safe and secure location and minimizing data loss in case of hardware failure or cyber attack. So we want to make sure that at all times we are doing regular backups, and these regular backups, they are there. So if there is a disruption, if there is a ransomware, if there's a failure of the infrastructure or the system, that there are backups that were done regularly. And then we have backup rotation. And we talk about backup rotation. We say backup should be rotated regularly, creating multiple versions that could be used for data recovery in case of accidental deletion or corruption. Because sometimes it's not only the bad actor that cause a disruption in the system. It could simply mean an employee from within accidentally delete them. And if they accidentally delete something, how do you get it? That's why backup is very important, that you back up the system at all time. And then we do backup testing, right? So regular testing data backups to ensure they are functional, and can be restored successfully in the event of a disaster. So sometimes what you may need to do is to check the backup. Is this backup working? Is it functional? Is it functioning properly? So we have to test those backups many times to make sure they are functioning, right? It's important that you do this within the organization because it prevents all kinds of issues in the long run, right? So you can have off-site backups. When we said off-site backups, we're storing backups off-site in a physical secure location, helps protect against data loss due to fire, flood, and other local events. So sometimes you might have a data center somewhere else, or a place, or a physical place where the data are stored, whether you do them in file, whether you do them on the system, but you have your data center, and this is an off-site place. So if there is a flood, if there are fire or anything, you will have these data. So this is all backup, okay? So let's look at this scenario. A business may back up its file every night. We look at this maybe a few times already, to external drive, right? If just in case something happened, and this is very important. So let's look at some scenarios for this, right? So scenario and data backup. Scenario one, ransomware attack on a law firm. A law firm handling sensitive client information is hit by ransomware attack, encrypting all legal documents. The attacker demands 500,000 to restore the access. Solution, the firm uses its daily offsite backup to restore all data without paying the ransomware. So because they have an offsite backup system, they were able to be spared. So they don't have to pay the ransom, right? Backup scheduling or revisit to include real-time replication for better protection. And lesson, having a secure encrypted backup prevents data loss and financial damage. If they didn't have the backup, what would have happened? What do you think would have happened? They would have had to pay that ransom because the attacker encrypts all the file and they don't have the keys to decrypt it. University data server crash. A university's database server storing student grades crashed due to hardware failure. Solution, it restored data from a redundant RAID backup system. The university tests the backup monthly to ensure recovery liability, right? So the frequent testing of the backup system was crucial here for operation to continue. So because they had done a RAID backup, right? And the system crash, now they can go to their secondary to restore the data. Financial institution compliance backup situation. A bank must comply with federal regulation required 5 years of transactional data retention. The bank implements an incremental and full backup stored in a secure encrypted cloud server. So they do both incremental and full backup. The lesson here is full backup to secure encrypt cloud service. A disaster recovery plan is tested yearly. So they do the testing to find out that it is working, right? So the lesson is that regulatory compliance depends on a long-term encrypted encrypted backups, right? So some place which stipulate what must be done and how it must be done. Did you get that one? So let's look at some multiple choice. What is the purpose of data backup? What is the purpose of data backup? I'm sorry. A, to increase computer performance. B, to create copies of important data for recovery in case of loss. C, to slow down system performance. D, to encrypt files for security. So the purpose of data backup is to create copies of important data to recover in case of loss. Remember, that's what we said it is. Number two, which backup strategy ensure maximum data protection? Which backup strategy ensure maximum data protection? A, saving the data only on a local hard drive. B, using 2 to 3 backup rule. 3, copy 2 different storage type, one off site. C, keeping 1 copy of data on a drive. D, backing up the data only once a year. And we answer will be using the 2 to 3 to 1 backup rule. So we're going to use a 2 to 3 to 1 backup rule. So the 2 to 3 to 1 backup rule says that your backup 3 copies, 2 different storage type, and 1 off-site. Your system must continue. There must be continuity of business operation. Which type of backup saves only files that change since the last backup? Which types of backup save only files that change since the last backup? Is it the full backup, incremental backup, differential backup, or mirrored backup? So in this case, it will be incremental backup. Why is offsite backup storage important? Why is offsite backup storage is important? Backup is important because it protects data from physical disaster like fire or flood. It's important because it increases system speed. It eliminates the need for cybersecurity measures. It replaces all local storage. So it's important because it protects data from physical disaster like fire or flood. Important. Look at it. Why is offsite storage important? It's going to protect your data from physical disaster like fire or flood, right? What is the major risk of not testing backup? When you have the backup but you don't test them to see if they are working, what is the risk? The backup might not work when needed. The backup file size will be too large. The system will slow down. The backup process will fail immediately. And one of the risks is the backup might not work when needed. Do we understand that concept? Is there an understanding? So we're going to continue right through with this one. Okay, these ones are a little bit shorter, so that's why I'm going right through. Continuity of operational plan. So let's see where we are in the syllabus. Continuity of operational plan. And oops, and let's see where we are. So we are right here, continuity of operational plan. Then we're going to do redundant site consideration. So we're doing these two together. Maybe the three of them together, and then we'll have to come back to the multiple choice. So if I'm doing all three together, then I'll come back to the multiple choice separate. So let's just run down to where we just left off. Yeah, so we were at continuity of operation. So when we talk about continuity of operation, right? Continuity of operation, we're saying that we must do some assessment, right? We're going to plan. How is operation going to continue? Should there be a failure? Should there be a problem? Continuity of operation must go on. So we're going to have plan development. We're going to create a detailed plan outlining steps to mitigate risk and restore operation. So if there was a ransomware attack, if there was a burning of the building, if there was some interruption, how can we continue business in the face of all of this? So that's why in the continuity of operation, we do planning. Planning, after we finish, we plan, we create a detailed plan outlining steps to mitigate risk and restore operation. How we're going to mitigate a problem when it arrives. Then we're going to do a risk assessment. After we do the plan, then we have to do some assessment, identify potential risks. So listen, so I'm not doing them in order. If we're doing them in order, then we're not doing them in a specific order right now, right? So we know we plan, then we're going to do a risk assessment. We're going to identify potential threats and the impact it will have on the operation. So we have to make sure that we identify what are the threats that we will face, right? And identify them. What are the assets that we are trying to protect from malicious attacker? And after we do that, then we're going to communicate the plan. We're going to establish a clear communication channel for internal and external stakeholder during crisis. Because in the business continuity se- section, you have to tell who do you communicate with should there be a disaster. Who do you call? Who do you tell? What do you do? What are the plans that are in place? All of that took place while the planning was going on. While the planning was going on, all of that was a part of the planning. And when you do the risk assessment is going to tell you what asset is at risk, what is the impact that it will have on the business should it happen. The communication plan is established the line of communication or the hierarchy of communication, right? During a crisis. Oh, so there's a ransom attack, the whole hospital closed down, or the whole of Facebook closed down because there's a ransom attack. What was the plan, the continuity plan in the face of all of that? What did they have to say that if there was an attack on Facebook or if there's an attack on TikTok, what are we going to do in the midst of this to keep the system running while we are fixing the problem? All of this will be in the in the continuity operational plan, okay? Then you're going to test and train. So regular test the plan, regularly you're going to test the plan to ensure effectiveness and train employee on their role. So you're going to train the employees of how to do all of this. What are their roles? You in the IT department, what is your role should there be an attack on the system? What is the role that you are going to play? So redundancy site consideration is the next concept. So when we talk about the site consideration, we're talking about the geographical diversity, right? Um, Choosing a secondary site located in different geographical region important. This maximizes the risk of simultaneous disruption due to natural disaster or other regional event. So if you're making you are having data, or you must make more than one center where the data is located geographically, right? So you must have it in different area. Network connectivity, these are consideration you must take when you create when you're doing redundant site consideration. Network connectivity, ensuring there are good network connectivity between primary and secondary site, which guarantee good flow of data and communication, right, during a disaster. Infrastructure and resource. The secondary site should have sufficient infrastructure. It should include servers, storage, and power to support the primary site of operation. So it must have enough power. It must have enough of everything to support, okay, during those moments when there are power outage or where there is a shutdown. So resilience and recovery testing, right? Tabletop exercise. These are some of the ways that we're going to bring out scenarios and situation just in case this happen. So if there's a ransomware scenario, what we're going to do? We can act that out. We can discuss it. If there is a flood, what we're going to do to continue business. We can different means. So we have the tabletop exercise. is a team simulated a disaster scenario. They review the continuity plan and identify potential gap or weakness. So we have the continuity plan, and they can look at the continuity plan and they can add to the continuity plan, and they can make a decision whether there is a gap in it or some form of weakness. And then we have partial system testing. It involves testing specific component of the continuity plan, right? Right? Such as the data backup, restoration, or network failover. So we're going to test some part of the plan, the continuity plan that we have in place. And then we have the full scale simulation, which a comprehensive test involve all aspects of the continuity plan and simulating real world disaster events. So that's what they do in the resilience. And okay, I guess these are some. Okay. So when we talk about the plant cyber resilience, right? Very important. So let's go. So we say cyber resilience, we're looking at it in an hospital industry. And we say that the patient data protection, we probably could look at it from this perspective. Hospital must prioritize the security of sensitive patient data, implement a robust safeguard to protect against cyber attack, and ensure HIPAA compliance. These are some of the resilience in, and uninterrupted care. Cyber resilience in healthcare is crucial for uninterrupted patient care, right? And this include reliable power source, backup systems, and disaster recovery plan to maintain essential operation. Like we said, at the end of the day, the aim of this is to ensure that there is no downtime. The the impact of cloud computing and cyber resilience, this is really not a big part, it's not a really a part of the lesson, but because we use the cloud, I put it in, right? So cloud computing offers numerous benefits for cyber resilience, include scalability, elasticity, data redundancy, and disaster recovery capabilities. And cloud providers typically operate highly resilient infrastructure with multiple data center and robust security. So that's some of what they offer. So because there are ransomware, there are supply chains attack, there are data breaches, we need all of this thing. We need to adapt to the different techniques and technologies and ways out there to protect ourselves because of ransomware, because of supply chain attack and data breach, right? Because these emerging threats, there needs to be continuous adaptation because all of these many times are continuous threats. We need to adapt, right? We need to build a culture of cybersecurity that is going to train the employee on policies, on incident response, so they don't make the mistake or they don't know what to do. And then what you have is the disruption and destroying of data, okay? And it's also important for collaboration and information sharing. And when we talk about information sharing, sharing information about threats and vulnerabilities, that helps the organization, right? So it helps them to gather information as new threats emerge and what you can do to help to make your system better. Investing in cybersecurity tools and technology which help to monitor your system. These are just some tools like the firewall, which act as a barrier between operations, network, and the outside world. And then we have the SIM, the security information and event management, which again analyze different it seems collect and analyze data from multiple sources and provide a centralized view of the security event. Okay, and then we have intrusion detection. These are just some ways that they say that you can use, right? So we dealt with a intense area. So I will see you in the next class. If you have any question, please don't refuse to reach out and I will give you the answers.